Welcome to Horsepower. I'm Willie, and today I'm going to make a custom upright for my Celica GT4 rally car. So if you know anything about Celicas and have raced them on the track, you might be aware of the issue of brake pad knockback, and this is basically due to the factory wheel bearings not being grunty enough. Once they get warm, they expand and they have a lot of clearance, and then your wheel effectively wobbles and that knocks your brake pad back, and then you go to put your foot on the brake and the foot goes to the floor, and you need to give it a couple of pumps before you get a solid brake pedal back. And for me, this hasn't really been a problem. I usually race my car on gravel, and the forces from the gravel, the G-forces just aren't high enough to really cause an issue for me. But I have raced my car around the track and the issue has become apparent. And if you also follow the Celica world, you will probably be aware of the Prius upright upgrade. And we have here the factory knuckle, or upright depending on what you want to call it, and the Prius one. So what people do is they effectively swap this for this, and that upgrades your wheel bearing. So these are a much bigger bearing, so they will handle more abuse for longer, and on top of that they're a bolt-in item, so it's very easy to service. With this one here, you've got to remove the hub, you've then got to remove the seals, put the whole lot into a press them out, and then press them back in. It's a lot of mucking around, so this is far easier. So what I'm going to do is not use the Prius hub. So people make these work, and it may be better, it may be worse, but it certainly won't be optimized. And by that, what I mean is the geometry in this knuckle doesn't really work with the Celica, or when I say doesn't work, wasn't designed to work. So you're probably leaving a lot on the table in terms of dynamics, in terms of what the wheel does. So what I'm going to do is go a step further and make my own upright, but use the Prius wheel bearing, so we can have all of the advantages of this wheel bearing, and then make my own geometry to suit the Celica. If you go to put this into a Celica, there are obviously several problems. One, that is significantly thicker than that, so you've got to either mill that down, which takes a lot of strength out of it, or modify your coilover. And while that's perfectly doable, I want this modification to be backwards compatible, so I don't want to have to modify my coilover and then I can't go back to that easily. So everything that I do, I want to be able to change back to an existing setup if for whatever reason it doesn't work. And the other issue is that the ball joints aren't the same. They are very similar, so you've got to get or make wee adapter plates to make them work. Not a big deal. Also, the factory brakes don't work. The factory brakes aren't very good, so you might see that as a good opportunity to upgrade to something a bit better. I'd say the biggest thing which could make it better or worse is the position of the outer tie rod. And you can see these are both roughly sitting on the studs. This is a lot lower than that. So what that does is it affects your acumen, and the acumen changes how much each wheel turns compared to the inside to the outside. There's plenty of good videos on YouTube, so go watch those if you're interested. And so this here has quite a high acumen, which is great for scooting around shopping mall car parks and such. Not necessarily a great thing for high speed maneuvering, so I'm going to make some changes there, but effectively what I'm going to do is keep this geometry the same and then make an adjustable Ackerman piece which will bolt onto the side, therefore that can be easily changed, and incorporate the press wheel bearing. So I'm going to get on to Fusion 360, fire it up and start drawing. Here is the final design. We can see here that this is made using fabricated laser cut parts that are going to be welded together. So all the key points, so this is obviously the strut mount here, the lower ball joint. Now there's going to be some machine spuds that go in here and in here, which is going to have the taper for the ball joint. And then we can see the steering bracket here has 3 different holes for 3 different Ackerman settings that we can play around with. And obviously the brake caliper holes here. And basically, yeah, this is all going to be laser cut from mild steel plate and then all welded together. There's also some bent pieces of steel here which will bend up, and this piece here will unbolt just through there. It just means we can easily change that bracket later on. A pile of steel has arrived from the laser cutters. So all this will become our knuckle. Let's see if it fits. This prototype here is made out of mild steel plate and welded together. This is a very good way of prototyping as it's cost effective but also easily modifiable should we need to make little changes on it. The idea is that once we get it all geometrically correct and happy with the performance, we can then remodel it in a way that it can be machined out of billet aluminium, and once this is done, we can then offer it for sale through Agile Performance. Here is the ball joint taper, so that will slip in like so and take the place of that. Slips in there. And goes there like so. So the angle should be the same as that. Looks pretty good. Let's tack her up. Now the upright is fully welded. All went together pretty easy. Welding nice thick material like this is quite satisfying. You get lots of nice colours. Stack some dimes. Now what I'm going to do is just get the flapper disc and give it a wee tidy up, get any rough edges off it, any sharp edges. Probably drill out these holes just to make sure all the bolts are going to nicely slide in and out, and then give it a paint. Here is the Prius wheel bearing. So this is ideal. It's got the same 5x100 stud pattern as the Celica. It's got the same spline as the Celica drive shaft, and it's got the same centre bore for the brake disc as the Celica. Unfortunately, so this bit here is the same, and then it's got this little lip. So the brake disc sits here, but it's got this little lip here. So if you put a Celica brake disc on here, it gets really tight, and it's about a 1/2 mil lip. So what I've had to do is then machine these ones down just a little bit, just so that the brake discs slide on there nicely. You could probably get away with not doing it and just jam the discs on really hard, but you're going to have a real fun time getting them off. Here's a fairly important part of the equation. So we've got a factory tie rod, inner and outer, and just an inner here. And I'm going to put a rose joint or a rod end, time joint, whatever you want to call it, on the outside here. So this is a 5/8 or roughly 16 mil, and we can see there we've got these little spaces here, so they effectively give it more articulation. And when we roughly line them up, we can see that they overlap. So I'm going to have to chop down either one or both of them, and then I've machined up some adapters here. Here's the other one here. These are exactly the same as what we sell in our Agile Performance kits for a Supra, and we use the same size rod ends, and the Supra uses the same size inner tie rod. So all I've done here is just shorten it. Makes it pretty easy, and they're stainless as well, so it won't rust. Here are all the parts ready to assemble. So we have rose joint adapter, bolt that goes through the rose joint through the bracket, some cap screws that bolt the hub assembly to the knuckle, and obviously we need everything for both sides. Very simple to assemble. There's just a couple of cap screws there, another couple down here, and then 4 cap screws holding in the hub. That is the knuckle and everything assembled. There's obviously a lot of things we want to check. We want to spin the axle around, make sure nothing binds up. We want to run it through its clearance, run it through its movement, up and down, left to right, make sure nothing binds up. Another important thing is to make sure we got some axle movement, which we do, so that's all good. We should also need to check it at its different stages in movement. It's all bolted up pretty well. I had to make a couple of slight adjustments off camera, just in terms of clearance around the CV joint, but everything looks really good. This is obviously the V1. I'm going to make a version 2 and make a few tweaks here and there. It's pretty rare something like this works perfectly first time, but I managed to make some basic changes to this without redesigning it. Fundamentally it's all pretty good. Obviously this needs a wheel alignment. I've just eyeballed it really roughly for now, so I'll take it down to my mate at Full Drive Upgrades and he'll do me a wheel alignment on it. But for now this is complete. We'll take it around the block, make sure it doesn't fall to bits. Yeah, so pretty chuffed with all that and how it all went together. This is actually the first knuckle I've designed, so yeah, pretty happy. I'm just going to go through carefully off camera and just do a bunch of checks to make sure, as I say, make sure everything clears. Obviously put the axle nut on so that holds the bearing together, and then we'll take it around the block.